ಅದೇ ಥರ ಇದೇ ಮಂತ್ರಾಲಯದ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಕಾರ್ಯದರ್ಶಿಗಳಾದ ಅಲ್ಕೇಶ್ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಶರ್ಮಾ ಅವರಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಜಂಟಿ ಕಾರ್ಯದರ್ಶಿಯಾದ ಆಕಾಶ್ ತ್ರಿಪಾಠಿ ಅವರಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಬ್ಯೂರೋ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಪರವಾಗಿ ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ವೇದಿಕೆ ಮೇಲಿರುವ ಮಾನ್ಯರಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತನ ಕೋರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಈಗ ಮಾನ್ಯ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಸಚಿವರು ತಮ್ಮನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಉದ್ದೇಶಿಸಿ ಮಾತನಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಗುಡ್ ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್. As you have heard and you are aware that the year 2023, India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has assumed the leadership of the G20, the presidency of the G20. And the G20 as a group of the world's top 20 nations talks about international cooperation, which includes trade, climate change, sustainable development, health, agriculture, energy, environment, anti-corruption. The G20 members, you are all aware, are the top 19 nations of the world, the biggest economies of the world, the most influential countries in the world. And in this year, India is the president. In the backdrop of a world that is coming out of the COVID pandemic, in the backdrop of a world increasingly recognizing India's presence on the world stage in general as the fifth largest economy in the world, and most importantly, in the space of digital economy and innovation in particular. The Digital Economy Working Group, which is part of the G20, has had 3 meetings so far, and the 4th and final meeting is very appropriately is in India's tech capital, Namma Uru, Bengaluru. Our city of Bengaluru is the destination of this 4th and final DEWG. I will just quickly summarize for you how in the post-COVID world and during the COVID and post-COVID, how India's technology capabilities, all in a sense launched in 2015 by our Honorable Prime Minister as Digital India program, have played a very significant part of India's resilient fight against COVID during the 2 years of pandemic. And today, India is becoming a case study for the rest of the world in how we have created digital public infrastructure like India Stack, how we have created the world's fastest growing innovation ecosystem with startups that are crossing 1 lakh startups with over 100 unicorns. And as equally important as all this, how technology has been used in India to transform citizens' lives, which is where the India Stack comes in. So I want to just share with you that over 8 countries have signed MOUs with India. 8 countries where the DPI, the digital public infrastructure that connects citizens to governments and that have transformed citizens' lives and democracy and governance in our country. 8 countries have agreed to work with India to take our technology and implement it in their countries. And today in Bengaluru, 120 startups from all around the world have assembled as a recognition of the world's, of India standing as a center of gravity almost of the innovation ecosystem, global innovation ecosystem, and a global champion of innovation and startups for all the countries of the world, especially the global south. It is extremely exciting times that we are living in. The Honorable Prime Minister has referred to the coming decade as a decade of technology opportunities. And he has also said on 15th of August 2021 that the India decade will be built by, energized by the creativity, the determination and the energy of young Indians from all around the country. So we are, and as the G20 is showing, as the DWG is showing, and as today's G20 DIA shows, this message and preeminence of India in the world of innovation and startups is being recognized by the world. And India's message to the world is of partnership, of open source DPIs, of creating innovation ecosystems in their own countries, and helping them create the digital skills that are required for their success in the coming decade. Thank you. I will take some questions if there are any questions.
ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ತಮ್ಮ ಹೆಸರು ಯಾವ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರೋ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
Name and
Sir, I am Shailesh Yadav from ANI News Agency. Sir, can you name the 8 countries and what type of this MOU is, and how this is going to help these 8 countries?
The countries that have signed MOUs with India are Armenia, Sierra Leone, Suriname, Antigua, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and Papua New Guinea and Mauritius. And the scope is not just the DPIs, because these are open source DPIs, is not just about the India stack, but also about skilling. It is also about helping them create their own startups and innovation ecosystems in their countries.
Good morning.
ವಿಜಯ್.
Vijay from Bangalore, DNS Delhi. My question is, we know the advantages of digital economy, everything. What are the side effects of black economy? And what is the policy making by the government of India or rest of the world in this regard?
Black economy.
Black economy, advantages and disadvantages of it.
No, so first of all, I won't pretend that I understood the question, but let me answer on the economy front. As I said in my in the speech during the inaugural, innovation is now increasingly an important part of the economic architecture of countries, economic goals. Our digital economy used to be 4.5% of GDP, total GDP in 2014. Today it is 11%. And by 26, our Prime Minister has put a target of 20%. Now, the digital economy represents a democratization of opportunities for our youth. In the past, when you talked about GDP and economy, it is about 10 companies, 12 companies, big corporations. But the economic framework of India is now increasingly going to be driven by young Indians who are innovating, who are building startups in multiple areas. Now, this part of the economy is because of the very nature of digital, it depends on digital identity, is a fight against any black economy. The traditional businesses which generates cash, which feeds into the black economy, is certainly, this is about as 180 degrees away from it as you can get. So as you increase the component of digital economy, the qualitative nature of our economy, the size of the black economy to GDP also comes down. So this is the other positive effect, if that was the question.
Aisha.
Yes.
Aisha.
The fact that the G20 countries are now, the G20 is reaching the finale next month. So what are your expectations on the outcome documents that is likely to emerge from here? Because there will be ministerial meeting at this G20 here. So what are the expectations? On what lines will the core declaration be?
So I won't, I should not speak about what the document is. The document is for the ministerial meeting to finalize. But I can certainly tell you that the broad topics that we believe are relevant for the world in this era of digitization are DPIs, which I've said, the digital public infrastructure, the digital goods for the rest of the world, the safety and trust of the internet, which is cyber security, cyber safety. The third is skills, so that there is this phenomenon that technology was a very exclusionary part of the global economy, which is where some countries in the West or some companies cornered all the opportunities, that through a concerted effort within the G20 and led by countries like India, we can address the gap in digital skills around the world. And that is why our Honorable Prime Minister's leadership, in a sense, of the Global South, where all of these things that I talked about are very relevant, becomes very relevant. So I will not comment on the exact text and phrase of the document, but broadly I think the world today wants a cooperative, harmonized approach towards safety and trust in technology, on skills, and certainly more and more deployment of technology for the benefit of people rather than excluding people, which is what India is a case study of.
API facility for all the G20 country travelers. What is the status on that? Could you tell us more about this?
Look, the India stack, the UPI, which is a part of the India stack, which is the fintech or the payment layer, is increasingly being adopted, because as you are seeing today in the post-COVID world, more and more countries that are interested in bilateral transactions. Singapore, Japan, the Middle East, the UAE has all signed up, France recently. We see the UPI platform for its simplicity, for its speed, latency, responsiveness being increasingly adopted in the context of more and more countries wanting to deal with India directly, rupee with their currency. So you saw recently that for the first time ever, for a petroleum shipment, India paid the UAE in rupees. So there is that trend, as well as there is this trend that people want increasingly, these open source platforms that are owned by nobody, but allow countries and consumers to transact.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Narayankar from UNI. In a recent interview, Mr. Raghuram Rajan, he has raised some questions about PLI scheme. He says that India is not mobile phone exporter, but a mere assembler of phone parts for exports.
Yeah.
How do you, react to this?
I certainly don't want to react to it, and this is obviously not the subject matter for this press conference. I will certainly respond to you on the sidelines to that question, but this is certainly not the subject that we are discussing today in the DWG.
सर इंडिया ने अभी वीवरटेक में पार्टिसिपेट करा था, और लास्ट ईयर जो है इंडिया कंट्री ऑफ द ईयर था, उसको यूरोप का सबसे बिगेस्ट स्टार्टअप इवेंट बोला जाता है. अब जैसे कि इंडिया ने ये G20 की प्रेसिडेंसी में DIA शुरू करा है, इसमें कई कंट्रीज़ के स्टार्टअप जो है पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं, तो ऐसी कोई योजना है कि हम इसको G20 के बाद भी बड़े लेवल पे स्टार्टअप का कोई इवेंट करें, जिसमें कम से कम G20 कंट्रीज़ के या एशिया के ज़्यादातर कंट्रीज़ पार्टिसिपेट करें? और
देखिए, मैं बड़ा स्पष्ट रूप से कहना चाहता हूँ कि ये जो भी हम कहते हैं यहाँ पर DWG में हो या G20 में हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी कहते हैं, हम वो मीटिंग के लिए नहीं कहते हैं. डिजिटल इनोवेशन अलायंस हमने ये हमारे प्रेसिडेंसी के लिए नहीं बनाया है. हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी कह चुके हैं कि आने वाले दशक एक डेकेड है, डेकेड ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी अपॉर्चुनिटीज़. तो हम जो यहाँ पर कह रहे हैं, हमारे प्रेसिडेंसी में हम जो आगे लगा रहे हैं दुनिया के देशों के सामने, हम मानते हैं ये आने वाले दशक सभी देशों के लिए फ़ायदेमंद होगा. So the DIA is not a topic of conversation only for the DWG, nor is it a topic of conversation only in the year 2023. We are saying today, and this is really, the world is acknowledging that the Prime Minister's Narendra Modi ji's vision of digitization, which he started in 2015, which has brought India to this stage of eminence and leadership in the tech ecosystem, is something we want to share with the world, not for this year, but for the coming decade. So this is a very important leadership role, partnership role that India wants to play with all those countries and peoples of those countries that have been denied the benefits of technology for all these years because technology was cornered by a few countries or a few companies. तो ये आने वाले दशक में इसका DIA का इफेक्ट, हमारे देश के पार्टनरशिप, हमारे देश के साथ MOU और पार्टनरशिप का इफेक्ट और G20 में ये बदला हुआ अवेयरनेस जो हमने क्रिएट किया है उसका इफेक्ट हमको देखने को मिलेगा.
Yeah, hi, I'm Uma Kannan from the New Indian Express. Just a follow up on the MOU that you were talking about, 8 countries. So, is this part of G20 and also are you expecting more countries to sign up?
No, so I'll explain this. It's not necessarily part of G20 nor is it not connected to G20 because I'll tell you why. In the G20, there is a growing consensus about the power and efficacy of DPIs. How open source DPIs, digital public infrastructure, benefit people who have been excluded from the empowerment of technology for so many years. So the DPI is now increasingly seen by countries as a way to connect to their citizens, give better governance, help digitize their own economies, and so on. And we are saying, as part of that, we are saying, here is what the India stack is, here is what the India DPI is, and we are more than happy to offer this very creative ecosystem of startups and technology to all those countries who want to also adopt and adapt and customize it to their needs. We are seeing where many startups from around the country are also becoming part of the ecosystem to create this, to create solutions. So this is the way we will approach it. But the interest, because India is such a shining example and shining beacon of how technology has transformed governance, the interest amongst countries is very high.
Please give them the mic there.
So I'm Savitri from Asianet News in Bengaluru. So there are extensive discussions happening regarding the digital public infrastructure, but the instance of leaking data from the CoWIN portal through the Telegram app was like a very controversial subject recently. So how the safety of the data of public citizens can be assured? Is there any topic of discussions which is happening in DIA?
So therefore I said there are 3 broad topics that are being discussed in the DWG and broadly as part of the G20, which is one is, like I said, DPI. The second I said safety, trust, which is cyber security and cyber safety. And the third is digital skills. And we have recently, as you know, legislated a digital personal data protection bill. And we are seeing from the responses from the rest of the world that increasingly countries are seeing that as the benchmark in how to allow innovation, how to create DPI, how to create more and more innovation, but also at the same time protect our digital nagriks and digital citizens from issues like data protection, data leaks and so on and so forth. So this is very much part of the DWG conversation, very much part of our policy framework. I don't want to get into a conversation about you characterizing this as a controversy. People will create controversies, whether they're real or imaginary, then it is left for us to convey that it is imaginary. But certainly we take, through the legislation that we have now legislated DPDP, we take our duty to ensuring our citizens' rights to data protection very, very seriously. And in a lot of ways, the countries around the world are seeing what we are doing.
Kone prashne, last question. Anybody?
Minnie from the Hindu.
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned that 20% of digital economy will account for 20% of GDP by 2026, right? Do you have any, the government has any data for the currently how much it is?
I just said that we are at about 11% today.
Today?
Today we are 11%. We were 2014, we were about 4.5%. And by 26, we will be about 20%. $1 trillion out of $5 trillion. This is our target. I mean, the way we are going, it could be that we would be more than 20 as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you.